Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. Today is December 26th, 2018. And tonight's topic, the Plunge protection team fuels record stock gains, and what a day it was on Wall Street in the equity markets. We're going to cover the gold, silver, and crypto markets as well. And then we're going to do a follow-on to what we discussed last night, which was Trump told people to buy the dip. He made a plea the day before Christmas that stocks could be undervalued and the price earnings ratios looked good. And we talked about the Plunge protection team and what might happen. So if you haven't checked out that episode, we recorded that one last night on the night of Christmas. So please check that one out. This one's a follow-on. You can follow this even if you haven't listened to last night's broadcast, but it does provide some context that I'm not going to cover here tonight. But let's take a look now at the gold and silver markets against this backdrop of record gains on the three equity indexes. The Dow up well over 1,000 points, all indexes up 4 or 5%, NASDAQ, S&P 500. But let's take a look what happened with gold when the PPT was in full effect. Now, the day started out with stock prices meandering for a couple hours. A little bit up, a little bit down. And gold took that as a cue to, okay, let's continue our soaring higher. And gold broke out of the day around in the morning, before noon, heading close to 1280. It got up to about 1278. And then the Plunge protection team appeared to kick in and stocks began their upward ascent. And gold conveniently started its descent. Now, one of the things that the exchange stabilization funds, the PPT, we have evidence where central bankers will talk about how there's a need to cap the gold price. They don't want people to think that gold is your alternative asset. If they're trying to get people to buy the dollar, to keep the dollar either as a safe haven or just to have, or to buy treasuries, or to buy stocks, they have to make gold look like it is not an attractive asset, especially during times of crisis, especially during times of market downturns. They don't want people to think that the obvious knee-jerk or intelligent response would be, I better get out of this game for a while and let me go stuff my money into gold as a safe haven. So you can expect when you have a roaring stock market that gold will take a clobbering. And the dollar today went up a lot. The dollar index almost at 97. Today it had risen from about 96.6. Same thing, it had dropped early when the stock market dropped, and when the stock market took off, dollar index went with it higher, gold went lower. You can see that right there, the gold price heading down lockstep with the equity prices rising, although it did recover just a little bit at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, literally, gold was not down hardly at all. Though gold was down 0.22%, down less than $3, but it had been up to 279, and it was heading, it was a nice looking rally. Now let's compare silver. We've talked about this, that generally in this market, gold will rise and silver will rise, but gold has been rising higher in this market, not this bull market, but this kind of meandering part of the market. And when they both drop, silver drops more. And that's why we've had the gold-silver ratio heading higher. Gold price goes up, silver price goes up almost as much or half as much. And then gold price goes down, silver goes down twice as much. And that's why we've got this widening gold-silver ratio. And we've said that the gold price really has to continue in that fashion, rising, silver trailing, continue to rise. And I would imagine gold would have to get past its recent highs of like 1350, 1380 before silver would start to throw out gains bigger than gold on a daily basis. That's pretty much been well established. The pattern doesn't mean that's what's going to happen, but it's been happening for years, and it's been happening for weeks and days. So it's basically the pattern we've seen. Today we saw a break in the pattern. Now it's only a day, and I think it's because the PPT was clearly looking to paint the tape. And it looks like they did exactly, I almost put a tweet on this in the middle of the day. They were looking to get 1,000 points on the Dow, 300 points on the NASDAQ, and 100 points on the S&P, and they got all three. They got the trifecta. Big, big gains, nice headline. But look at silver. Silver took off with gold at the same time that gold did. And silver, however, it looks like the plunge protection team or the exchange, whoever's playing with that market, failed to bat it down. Maybe they didn't think it was worth it. They were too busy trying to get the Dow and the S&P and the NASDAQ up and gold lower. That silver didn't get a beating. Now, it did come off its high. It had been at 15.15. And they did manage to bang it right below 15 to 14.99. How convenient. But on the day, it did manage to get up over almost a quarter, which is good for 1.5 points. So that is an anomaly there. Now, we'll have to see what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow's important. Will the plunge protection team continue to support the market? Or they let things kind of meander about or just sell off? I mean, after an 1,100 point gain, you might think you might have some bit of profit taking. Or they may want to drill the point home and let it go even higher, in which case I'd imagine silver would get caught back into the downdraft that gold is in. So it's hard to tell what's going on here. My guess is they started to knock silver down, and they figured it just wasn't worth the time. So silver did not take the same pummeling that gold did off the top. So what does that do for the unsustainable gold-silver ratio? Well, for a change, we finally went down to about 84 to 1. 84.4 to 1. Now, of course, that will come down lower. As the gold price rises, if you have a bull market and the silver price rises, there will come a point where the gains in silver will outpace the gold gains, provided that it's a sustained rally. If this gold price just goes up for another 3 months, and then it tops out at $13.50, and then it starts to drift down, and it does that all throughout 2019 and ends the year at $1,300, I don't think silver would outperform gold. But if in 2019 gold blows through $1,300, $1,400, $1,500, that's when I think you can expect to see silver start to move up a buck at a time and get to 20, 21, and then the gold-silver ratio go down below 80 for sure, and then into the 70s, and it just depends how long, if any, gold bull market you might have. So that's the gold-silver situation at the moment. Now, over on the crypto side, by the way, we've got some photos. A lot of people got their glasses and Smaulgld glasses and mugs just in time for Christmas, so we've got some festive photos of those mugs and glasses we're going to show you a little bit later on in the program. Now, Bitcoin, $3,803, up 0.34%. Bitcoin Cash, $172.63, $172.63, minus 4%. Ethereum, $130, up 0.5%. Litecoin, $30.65, minus 1.46%. And Ethereum Classic, gaining 18% today, up to $5.68. Before we move on to our plunge protection team stock market gains today, let's just take a look at a couple of stories coming out of China and Russia. Oh, before we get to, let's do some quick crypto. Indian crypto, as you may know or may not know, that Indians have a lot of issues with cryptocurrencies. They're considering an outright ban. Now they're saying maybe they're not going to ban them. This is a developing story. But one of the things they did, which pretty much shut down a lot of the crypto, was the Reserve Bank of India said that the banks couldn't deal with the exchanges, which effectively meant there was no legitimate, you couldn't really trade. You could trade, but you couldn't swap out your profits into fiat. And also, however, they're saying, though, in India that there's still a lot of trading going on. So it looks like the regulatory structure will come into play, and they won't ban it. This is what they're saying now. Could change and that they'll regulate it just like they're doing everywhere else, because the rest of the world, the G12, all the different entities, the big entities, are all talking about regulation. They're not talking about banning. So I don't think India wants to be on the ban side. But it says here, Indian crypto exchanges report record trading volumes amid regulatory uncertainty. So I think they realize that genie's out of the bottle and that they're going to have to do something, and banning is probably not going to be the smartest thing for them to do. Also, in other news here, I found this interesting. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, as you know, she had fallen a couple of weeks ago, and then she went to the hospital. They found some cancerous tumors in her lung. They removed them. But they're clearly trying to make her out to be as if she is a indefatigable stamina, and that she's just going to forge on. I mean, she is frail. She's 85 years old. And People magazine just 2 days ago said Ruth Bader Ginsburg was back at work, and they're trying to really build her up. And then today they say she's being released from the hospital. Now, that's just a bit of clever playing around with language, but I mean, the poor woman should probably retire and take care of herself. I don't think she's, but again, she's hanging on, and the media wants to make it seem like she will fight through this, but she is human, and there's probably more important things for her to take care of than to be on the bench when she is not feeling very well and indeed is ill. Okay, now, Russia was in the news today for gold. It's no news to you, to the Smaulgld game changers, because we talk about this all the time. When people talk about the game-changing Russian gold reserves, stacking gold hand over fist because they know it's coming, all that kind of nonsense. Well, as you know, we report on the Russian gold reserves each and every month. And what I point out pretty much each and every month is where Russia gets that gold. Well, Russia is the third largest gold producer in the world behind Australia, generally mining about 250 to 300 tons a year. And so what they do is they buy gold from the Russian banks who get it from the mines, and they add to their gold reserves. Makes total sense. They've got a currency that is not doing very well. They're trying to build up the reserves. They're trying to de-dollarize, mostly because the United States has got sanctions on them, doesn't allow them a lot of leeway. They don't have much trade with the U.S., so it doesn't make sense for them to hold as many dollar assets, because in the grand scheme of things, gold is as good as gold and probably better than holding dollars in treasuries. There may be a little bit liquidity issues there, but essentially having gold is a good thing if you don't have to go in the open market and buy it, and you can get it direct. Well, there's a news story today that the Russian VDP capital cuts gold exports due to higher demand from Russian central banks. As I mentioned, this year, so far, we've reported 263 tons of gold have been added to the Russian central bank. Well, if they only mine 250 to 300 tons, doesn't leave them much room to export much more. And they had come up with an arrangement. Most of their pittance of gold that they have left after they give it to the central bank goes to China. And late last year, they announced they were going to send some to India. Now, India needs gold because India has no gold mines. But it looks like that ain't going to happen this year because the Central Bank of Russia has gobbled up pretty much all of their gold reserves. Now, over in China, you know, I've had a problem with this Chinese story for years. China to crush the dollar. Game over, game changer. Gold back yuan. China's going to roll its gold out to a stadium, and then it's going to be game over. They're going to stand for delivery. All these hype stories. Sun Tzu says that somehow China is going to crush the United States. When I've been saying it's a Ponzi scheme for years, and they're going to crush anything. They're going to collapse under their own debt. But there's more stories out here, so let's just see what we got here about China to crush the dollar. Now, they are slowing down big time. They can't even borrow enough money. China factory jobs dry up as trade tensions hit manufacturing. Uh-oh, we got a problem here. Here's another one today, and I should start putting these up again. I love this one. China plans to allow banks to replenish capital via more channels, including perpetual bond issues, as they face growing pressures to write off bad loans and support the real economy amid a slowdown in trade tension. So there's a little trick that they do. The state-owned banks loan money to state-owned enterprises so that they can build stuff that they don't need, so they can get people working and they can make GDP. Then the bank goes to the company and says, okay, pay us back. And the company says, oh, we don't have the money to pay you back because we didn't sell anything. All we did was build it. And there's no revenue coming in because no one uses the bridge. The apartments are laying empty. And we don't have any money to pay you back. So the bank goes back to the People's Bank of China and says, what gives? And they said, well, nothing gives. You got to lend them more money. And they said, well, they don't pay us any money. I said, well, that's okay. Convert it into equity. Issue them more bonds. Do what you got to do. Lend them more money. And that's basically what they do. And all the China apologists, they try to act like, oh, that's all right. They just owe it to themselves. And they're going to crush the dollar because they have gold. And Sun Tzu says, and they give you all this nonsense when this is totally out of control. These are the same people that complain rightfully about the U.S. situation. This is beyond comical what they do in China. Oh, you don't understand, Louis. You haven't been to China. They haven't been to China. They don't. All they know is they want the gold price to go up, and they think somehow China is their gold buddy. China to crush the dollar. China to do this. Yeah, China to crush the Christians. Look at this. China arrests Christians. A systematic and escalating crackdown. Chinese Christian pastor has warned. Then you got social credit scores. You got all this stuff going on in China, and yet Sun Tzu, gold back yuan, game over, game changer, gold 50,000. I don't even, that's a narrative that's been stuck in people's craw. It really makes not much sense at all. All right, what else we got? Maybe we get to the pictures. We got a lot of nice pictures coming in from the Smaulgld game changers. We got mugs and glasses and dogs and yeah, let's take a look at those. All right, let's take a look. Before we get into the Plunge protection team activities, here is one. Someone up north from the northeast. And they've got that Smaulgld frosted mug. It looks like a Lagunitas Ale. Very hoppy beer. Thank you for sending that one along. And we've got another one on top of a washing machine. I really like this one. This one is cool. This one they ordered from the Smaulgld store. Let's see if I can find that one. Where is that one? On the Smaulgld store. It's a unique, elegant looking one. I think it's a 15 ouncer. Huh, can't find it. All right, I'll show you another one. Here's Smaulgld Cappuccino. That is the Smaulgld Classic mug sent directly from Smaulgld headquarters. And then we got another one. We got Buddy again. Now, Buddy's been pictured with a Smaulgld mug, but now Buddy there is pictured with two Smaulgld game-changing glasses. So if you're interested in those glasses, you can get them on the Smaulgld site. Let me see what we got here. I can give you the links, and you can order those up, and you'll have them maybe by New Year. Now, if you're going to order the Smaulgld, let me give you the general store. But if you want to order the Smaulgld Classic and Super Classic mugs, you can do that directly from Smaulgld.com. So the Classic and the Super Classic mugs, I'll show you what they are. They are these two guys here on the left and the right. Those I mail directly. You get those in 2 days. Priority shipping to the continental U.S. Shipping included. $23.99 for the Super Classic on the left. $19.99 for the Classic on the right. But I ship those out directly from Smaulgld headquarters. All the other Smaulgld products you order from the Smaulgld store. So if you want the Classic or Super Classic, just go to Smaulgld.com. And if you want to pay in Bitcoin or Litecoin, you can do so. I'll put that up there for you too. And actually, it makes sense to do it that way. You don't have to deal with PayPal, and there are the addresses for that. All right, now I think we're ready. If we've seen all the pictures of our Smaulgld glasses, I think we're ready for the top story. Find out what happened in this market today. China to crush the dollar. We've done that. We've done Ginsburg. We've done the gold and silver. Holiday online shopping, I just want to mention, was at a record at department stores, according to MasterCard, and Amazon reported that they, who obviously are a online store, also had record sales as well. So the idea that we're heading towards a recession, at least through December. Doesn't appear to be, because consumer spending is about 70% of GDP, and a recession is measured by 2 quarters of declining GDP, and it doesn't look like December is going to have not a decline, but negative GDP, like December is going to be negative. So if there's a recession, it would have to start in January and continue through June, the end of June of 2009. I'm not sure if we're headed towards that, but that's what one would need. Oh, here's the one I wanted to show you, the Smaulgld. There you go. There's Smaulgld, Santa's helpers, and a Smaulgld mug. And isn't that wonderful? Scott wants to play the music. What music is that? So much music. Well, if you want to hear music, I think you want to hear them. Well, let me get you the music. You want music? Mark Battaglia makes all the music. There's plenty of music we can play for you. So I will play you some music ahora mismo. Let's play When Lambo while I pull up some more stuff. We got them all around here.
Presenting the distinguished international news commentator and foreign correspondent.
This has been an extraordinary week in world affairs.
Now I told Hillary Clinton that that's moronic.
Now, having said all this, why aren't I 50 points ahead, you might ask?
You might ask, why am I not 50 points ahead? Uh-oh. All right, let's take a look now at the Plunge Protection Team fuels record stock gains. Now, this was quite a day on Wall Street. Record, indeed. Record number of points added on. And it was all presaged by 2 things. As we talked about last night, we had Treasury Secretary Munchkin. He had announced that he was going to put together the Plunge Protection Team to see what might be done. He also said that he had called the top 6 banks and got confirmation that their liquidity was fine. He also said, which was quite alarming, that as part of his convening the Plunge Protection Team, which does not include the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, he was going to bring them to the meeting too. Now, that was disturbing because people were not necessarily concerned about whether their banks would have money so they can get at their deposits. Well, that had the impact. The stock price on Christmas Eve fell 653 points, and that got people pretty nervous. And then the announcement that he made, and the Plunge Protection Team announced that was going to meet. And Donald Trump then said on Christmas Eve, no, it was actually Christmas Day, that he thought stocks were undervalued, and he told reporters that with this big drop that stocks are a good buy. Then Trump took off today. Didn't hear from him, didn't know where he was, didn't tweet anything, and we didn't hear from him until we found out later in the day that he had gone to Iraq to talk to some of the troops and give them a speech and give them the holiday cheer over there. Well, while he was gone, the stock prices were going higher and higher and higher and higher. And as we see, that the Dow Jones was up over 1,000 points to 1086 higher. NASDAQ was up over 300 points. It managed to be up 361 points. And the S&P 500 up over 100 points, or 116 points. And thus, in line with the Plunge Protection Team, restoring faith in the integrity of markets. Now, if that doesn't look like market intervention, market manipulation, telegraphed market manipulation, market intervention, then I don't know what does. Now, we had talked about yesterday, we were wondering, at least I was speculating, whether it was smart for Trump to own the bubble. And I said at the time, well, he'd either have to be a complete idiot not to know that you shouldn't do that if the stock market goes down, unless he knows that he has the ability through the Plunge Protection Team and the Exchange Stabilization Fund to push it back up. But then we also speculated that maybe those involved may not go along with this plan, as we saw how the Fed did not go along with him saying we shouldn't raise interest rates. But it turned out, and I was concerned that if it was possible, that if he couldn't get the stock market boosted back up, that he would then turning all of his efforts about complaining about the stock market and bragging about, quote, the real economy, and that he would maybe also be able to knock down a lot of the Silicon Valley stocks, and hit the people that oppose him the most, which are coastal elites, so to speak, who have the biggest exposure to stocks. But it looks like that now we don't know how this stock market increase was engineered, whether it was through treasury funds, whether it was through a combination of working with the 6 large banks. We have no idea how it was engineered, and we'll never know. They'll never tell you. But it looks like Mnuchin wants to keep his job because he took his marching orders, and halfway through the day I was looking at him saying, they probably are looking to have a real big day here to really shut it down that this is a problem. And the Dow going up over 1,000, NASDAQ over 300, S&P over 100. It really was across the board, making sure that this message was being heard. And that's when I figured, well, I don't think that Wall Street hates Trump enough. They probably like their profits more. They're not ready to throw in the towel on this thing yet. So they're going to have to go after him on Russian collusion or something else. Now, a lot of people are saying this is a dead cat bounce. And I disagree because the cat's always been fake. We mention this all the time. Last 9 years, GDP up 25% total, and the stock prices are up 300, 400%. The whole thing has been engineered. It's not a dead cat bounce. The cat's been a fake cat to begin with. So, question is, what appetite do they have to pump this stuff up? Because obviously, what happened today wasn't just investors scratching their head and saying, yeah, maybe we should dip our toe in the water. This was a ferocious bounce back. And it appears that it was engineered. I mean, he said, we're going to have the meeting with the Plunge Protection Team, and then they have the Plunge Protection Team, and what happens? Well, no one protects the plunge like the president's working group on financial markets. That much is obvious. I know that, there was a couple hours left in the market, and markets were up at 750 points. They just kept going up and up and up. And to have that type of thing happen and no circuit breakers, I mean, it seemed like they called off the dogs at the exchanges and they just let them ride 5%. It's massive to have a rise in stock prices go up that high, and yet that's exactly what they did today. So it looks like we don't know how this is going to pan out tomorrow. Well, here's an interesting question I asked, and I asked you guys too on YouTube. Did the bear walk out of the woods today? And 3 out of 4 said no. Most people are looking at this as a dead cat bounce, a bear market rally, and even our friend Peter Schiff says hope springs eternal in every bear market. Yes, doom springs eternal from Peter Schiff. But again, I don't view this as logically and rationally. Yeah, stocks are overvalued. The economy's not doing that great. But that's somewhat irrelevant. It's how much do you believe that there is the ability to drive markets higher? Because at some point, we know that the gold and silver markets are captivated by the ability to trade paper gold and then to satisfy people's cravings for gold with contracts and with GLD. And we see the very low physical gold demand in the United States. And we also don't see, I think a lot of people are misled by the gold numbers that come out of China and India. A lot of that gold is not investment gold. Silver too. It's for silverware, it's for jewelry. It's not investment gold, investment silver for the most part. And some of it's industrial. So My point is that these markets are highly contrived and highly manipulated. And the question is, I think not whether they can manipulate them higher, again, it's whether they want to. And remember, we also talked about whether, the Fed would sacrifice the dollar for the stock market. As I pointed out yesterday, they don't have to and they never would. They'll always put the dollar first, but as we saw today, they were able to do two things: boost the dollar index and boost the stock market. And I don't think people fully appreciate how the strength or the ability of the Plunge protection team, the central banks, the exchange stabilization fund have in their ability to boost markets. I mean, today was it's astounding how they're able to do that. Sentiment was totally down. Stock market going down for days and days and days, for months, and then boom. Now, we'll see what happens tomorrow. Maybe there's no sell-through. I would imagine if they're serious about this, you might see a lower open. In fact, I'm going to check the pre-market. Let's see where the futures are for tomorrow. And they're down. Yes, that's what I would expect. They'd be down 132 points. You might expect a bit of a sell-off. But if you see a sell-off in the morning and then the price rise in the afternoon, you know exactly what's happening. The Plunge protection team is back on the case. Now, it could be, remember yesterday we talked about, they may not go along with this. Well, maybe they go along with it and they go along for one day and they give Trump his one big day and they say, there you go, see, we can do it. And then maybe they don't want to do it anymore. Who knows what's going to happen? But I believe that if they want to drive these markets higher, we have we have 30 some odd years of this. Ever since Greenspan in 1987 jumped in, and ever since they created the Plunge protection team, we have not had a prolonged bear market at all. Nothing. We used to have them in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 30s, 40s, years of them, where the market just would go sideways, would go nowhere. That doesn't happen anymore. And that's because the United States has made it a point to say the dollar is supreme and our markets are the best because they don't go down and we are in control of those markets. We'll see if they continue with that mentality tomorrow. But for now, it looks like today was a stark reminder of what they can do. And they telegraphed it. You don't need any more information. That is all you need to know. When they say we're going to meet with the Plunge protection team tomorrow, and then you have Christmas, and then the next day, boom, record days across the board in everything. And I am still stunned by it because it is just I'm speechless at what they managed to do. And everybody who's talking about their charts and the fundamentals and at some point unsustainable, and it's almost largely irrelevant. I mean, if they can drive the price up like that, well, let's see what you guys think. I just think that they've demonstrated that they have complete control over these markets. And today was a stunning reminder of that. All right, let's see what you guys are thinking over in the comments. All right. Do you automatically get a Series 6 license upon being sworn as POTUS? Yeah, I mean, there he is, giving investment advice on PEs. La Plata Peak asked. De La Villa's here. Andrew says, woohoo, look at the market, guys. Pablo Pina, 1,000 points on the Dow today. Nuts roller coaster. Crypto Shrug this year. Andrew says, yep. What will happen tomorrow? Andrew asks Smaulgld. Well, we just said maybe if they want follow through and they want confirmation bias that they've put an end to this, they can put that narrative out there. They can get all the media going. They can drive it back up, or they can play dumb and say that, we don't really know. Maybe the Fed gets the upper hand, says we're still going to raise interest rates. And remember, there's a flip side to all this. And I was giving you the Reagan analogy, and I heard Dan Bongino saying the same thing today that I said last night, was that Reagan was in very dire straits in the early part of his first term. as they were still raising interest rates. But the impact of raising interest rates is actually good for the economy because it then encourages savings, you liquidate debt, and then the economy's on more sound footing, and that's what happened. You went from 81, 82 recession to a roaring economy with high GDP growth in 1984, and that's why he won re-election. So I think the Fed, I don't think they're out to hurt him, but if they were, raising rates might not do the trick, and especially if they can boost the stock market through other means. So raising rates is actually a good thing. Everybody's been complaining about the fake market and the low interest rates and the free money and the so on. Well, if they're going to do quantitative tightening and raise interest rates, ultimately that's good, and that would make the United States a much more sound economy than a place like China, where they just say, oh, we got a problem, loan more money. And that's basically what they're doing. The United States will argue whether they should keep raising rates. And that's another reason why China is not going to crush the dollar. I mean, who's going to trust the yuan, where they're going to have to also devalue that? Their reporting is 10 times less transparent than the U.S. reporting. So maybe this is all good. I don't know. The United States still has the unfunded liabilities, a lot of debt. But one thing the United States can do is can write off half of its foreign debt and off its Chinese debt if it really had a problem. Not suggesting that they do that, but that's something I'm sure Trump hasn't crossed his mind. I mean, that's what he does in bankruptcy. He just says, we're not going to pay. All right, let's see. Brent and crude up 9%, says Pablo Pinas. I didn't cover the oil markets, although crude oil is still way down. Gas prices are low, but it did pop up from $43 a barrel to $46 a barrel. Unsustainable AG, says Scott Wardell. Belang argues that below 67 is a trade to gold move. What do you think? I actually don't think the gold-silver ratio has any relevance anymore than the Smaulgld art to platinum ratio, because the gold-silver ratio was highly relevant when we had a bimetallic standard. When you had a bimetallic standard, they set the ratio at 16:1, 15:1, and that was for purposes of having a standard. You can't have a standard if it fluctuates so much. That standard was not necessarily based on market demand. It was based on natural ratios, meaning how much it comes out of the ground. But we've already talked about this, Scott, that relative rarity is not necessarily dispositive of price. It may have nothing to do with it. And the example I like to give is platinum. It comes out of the ground at a rate 10 times less than gold and is actually cheaper than gold. Gold is worth time and a half. Even when platinum outperforms gold, it doesn't outperform at 10-1. But you might say, but platinum is not a monetary metal and gold is. Well, that's definitely true, and that does play a large part of it. But same thing is true for silver. Silver is no longer a monetary metal one way, shape, or form at all. Only 10 to 12% of silver's overall demand is for investment demand. And a lot of that's in the United States. United States silver demand for investment is actually larger in ounces than it is in China. The Chinese don't invest in silver. The Indians generally don't invest in silver. They did in 1 year, I think in 2015, when it was really low, but they generally don't invest in silver. Gold, on the other hand, almost half of gold demand is investment demand. Central banks own gold. It is considered a reserve asset. So gold has a monetary base. About 30, 40, 50% of gold demand is because people have it for money, so to speak. Then the rest of it is jewelry and some industry. Only 8 to 10% of gold demand is industry, so that's irrelevant. Yeah, and so is the 10 to 12% of silver demand for investment. Most of silver demand is commodity and jewelry and silverware. So that's why the gold-silver ratio has gone higher, and that's why it's really not a reliable measure anymore, because the two of them are not considered monetary metals. The only people who consider silver monetary metals are people who listen to silver channels and are told that silver has been money, period, for 5,000 years, and we cannot live our lives without silver. Silver is so useful. Yeah, that silver is so useful argument is the same as copper is so useful. Copper is used in pipes. Copper is used to conduct electricity. You could say aluminum is useful, zinc is useful. Now you're making a commodity argument. It's how much silver, copper, tin, nickel is needed in industry. You have to know those. You have to know the numbers before you just spout that it's useful and they're finding more uses for it every day. For example, we know that there is less silver being used today than there was 6 years ago in electronics. 310 million ounces of silver, according to the Silver Institute, were used in electronics in 2010, and only 233 million ounces in 2017. So this whole idea that we could not lead our life without silver, yeah, of course not. And you couldn't live without many of the metals and many of the elements. It's how much of that element is needed compared to how much they produce. And clearly there is no silver shortage. But when you start spouting off about how it's money and they're going to go back on a silver standard, that's complete fantasy. The only time it was, and I was in that camp, but only because when I tracked it in 2014 and 15, silver actually became 22 to 25% investment demand because we had record demands of silver coming out of the United States Mint, coming out of the private mints, coming out of the Canadian Mint, Austrian Mint. But ever since then, that investment demand has fallen to about 12%. But the real key is, before it rose to 22%, it used to be 5%. So that was an anomaly. There is not a history of investment silver in the United States in the last 40 years. You had that spike in 1980, and then no one invested in silver, other than Warren Buffett bought a bunch of it and sold it like a year and a half later. But the point being is that from 2000 to 2008, no one bought silver. Investment demand for silver was 5%. Then it ratcheted up to 2015 to 22, 25%, and now it's back down to 10, 12%, which means it's like saying that the gold price is going to go up because the gold industrial demand is going higher. It would really have to even do more than it did in 2014 and 15 for it to matter. But if it did get back to that amount, that is when you had your gold silver ratio was down in 2011, got down to about 32, 33 to 1. But even in 2015, it was still in the 50s and 60s range. So I don't pay much attention to the gold silver ratio, because you're comparing, in some instance, in a large part, apples and oranges. Silver and gold were never the same, but when they both served as monetary instruments, meaning they were both held in reserve, and or the United States used to hold silver in reserve to pay silver certificates, and they used to use it in coinage. Same with gold. You got gold certificates and gold in coinage, and then they held it as reserves, and the world was on a gold standard. Central banks still hold gold. Silver is not a monetary metal, and gold is partially a monetary metal. And that's why gold has the premium at the moment. All right, what else have we got? Hopefully my mug comes tomorrow, says Seth Shepard. No, I would have sent you, when I sent it out, I sent a bunch of them out, confirmations. You got a tracking number, so it should tell you you'll be getting it probably tomorrow. All right. A mug in hand is worth 86 in the bush, says Scott Wordle. That is true. De La Ville says, Seth, we bought 2 big mugs. Loved them. Yep. Hear about the Chinese making a new fake gold, says Andrew. Yeah, I was going to cover that. Then I read it. It's kind of a non-story because it's not really gold. It's like copper that acts like gold. It's different density. It's I don't know. It wasn't really worth covering. Made several videos about silver to golf ratio and why it was overhyped, said Seth. I think you mean gold. Yeah. The F is next to the D there. The silver to golf ratio. I'd like to see those. Leave a link and I'll take a look at them. They think this gold will replace metals and electronics. Yeah, okay. But that's not going to hurt gold. That's going to hurt silver. La Plata Peak. India can't ban crypto. How else are you seniors going to pay to get irises off their computers? Or millennia is going to pay their outstanding IRS debts. Yes, you get those calls. You owe the money. All right. Silver popped nicely today, says Seth. Yes. Ruth hanging on by silver threads and golden needles. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's an enormous pressure on her, and I don't know if she's got that pressure on herself. Maybe she does. Maybe she feels an obligation to hang on. I knew her husband, and her husband died a long time ago. So maybe she feels that this is, what she wants to stay to her end days, doing the Supreme Court stuff, and that's where she's wants her final mark to be made, so she doesn't want to quit. I know I'd be gone. I would say, okay, I've had enough. ASMR people, laws are either constitutional or not. It's weird how whether a justice is conservative or liberal matters. Yeah, well, that's because they've created the concept, you go back to Marbury versus Madison, judicial oversight, and then they start creating laws. And I mean, if you look at Roe versus Wade, the Affordable Care Act laws, they basically just make it up. And what's interesting is if you criticize Roe versus Wade as not being constitutional, people get mad at you. The idea is though certain rights don't exist in the Constitution, you can create them by statute, and there's nothing wrong with that, but they want to have one size fits all, and so they created the concept of the penumbra of rights, because there is no right of privacy in the Constitution either. Now, you can create privacy statutes, if you wish, in the states, and that's exactly... And the same with the Obamacare argument. The Obamacare legislation was drafted as having a mandate, and it was not labeled as a tax. It was explicitly, even in either by the plain language of the statute, it was clearly not a tax, and even in the legislative history, they said they didn't want it to be a tax. And so therefore, if you read the Supreme Court ruling, they said that this mandate would be unconstitutional. You can't tell people they got to buy insurance. You can't tell people they got to buy broccoli. That was the famous question that Scalia and a couple other people asked, and in the oral arguments. And so they said, yeah, it's unconstitutional, except if it was a tax. Now, what they should have done at that point was send it back and said, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, this doesn't work the way it is. It's unconstitutional. We're sending it back to you. If you want to make it into a tax, go ahead and make it into a tax. But instead, they realized that if it went back to the Congress, it was a new Congress, there's no way they'd approve Obamacare with that in there specifically labeled as a tax. So what did Justice Roberts do instead? He said, well, we can't have this. It would be a disaster if we know how to repeal it. People have already signed up for it. So what we're going to do is we're going to say it's a tax. They probably would have wanted it to be a tax. They didn't have it as a tax, but if it is a tax, then it's constitutional because it's long established that the Congress has the right to place taxes. And so they called it a tax when it wasn't a tax, and therefore it's constitutional. So that's what you have in the Supreme Court. And you're absolutely right. It's in that case, it's not even liberal or conservative. It's just judges trying to get an effect, trying to reach a result. So what they do is they just mess around with it, and they say, oh, okay, well, at least we're the judges, and we say what constitutional is. And therefore, it's constitutional because it's a tax. All right. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, FDR got a lot of unconstitutional leftist stuff through. He also tried to pack the court, too. He figured he couldn't win what he had. Figured he'd just add 5 more judges, and he would be good to go. Okay, now Andrew says, the bigger question for me is when Elon Musk finds a gigantic nugget of gold and brings it back, what about the price? Well, the question for Elon Musk or anyone who goes to space and tries to get meteors, if that's even possible, is what's the cost of mining that? But it is true, we have had in history when big discoveries of gold or silver made, like when Europeans went to South America and Mexico, brought back a lot of silver and gold, then they had an issue with inflation because there was more money coming back into the system. So that is an issue. And that's what some people try to argue, that with Bitcoin and Litecoin, the numbers are fixed. There can never be any more. You can't find more. You can't add more. Then other people argue, well, you can fork them. But that's not the same thing because the fork is not on the same chain. You don't have the same mining structure. You don't have the same infrastructure. But, yeah, so that does change the dynamic. And Woodrow Wilson's gifts to Scott World to Christmas anniversary by no one. Nine Mang says, trust me, China will crush the U.S. as far as the numbers go. Okay. Crush the dollar. I think when the people say China's going to crush the dollar, they're just cheerleading for gold. I don't think China's goal is to crush the dollar. China's goal is to do the best it can for itself. Crushing the dollar is not a goal of China. China's goal is to provide food and opportunity for its people. If crushing the dollar does it, sure, they'll do it. But crushing the dollar isn't going to help China achieve any of its goals. Nor is internationalizing the yuan if it can't do what it needs to do with the yuan. And as a gentleman is saying here, that if China has domestic debt, they barely have international debt. Now, that's the argument, though, that the United States, when the United States people say, we have unfunded liabilities, Social Security, Medicare, they're in the trillions. No, that's domestic debt. We just owe that to ourselves. You just pull. Actually, domestic debt is dangerous because it impacts your currency. And you can't just, if you owe money, you owe money. You can't just write it off. And as we see, that is what those Chinese state-owned banks, state-owned companies do, is they end up becoming zombie companies. And debt has to be dealt with in some respects. You can extend and extend, but you can't just keep building stuff and hoping that you can somehow count that as GDP. My argument is China, United States, Russia, ECB, Japan, whoever it is, debt is toxic. It doesn't matter who holds it, whether it's domestic or international. There's slight wrinkles on there, but you cannot have too much debt. And if you have too much debt, it's going to screw you somehow. Yeah, China just took a massive port as payment instead of debt that could be, yes. That's another reason why the Belt and Road may hit a dead end, because countries are wary of that now. They don't want to they see the bookie coming, and they're encouraging them to gamble, take on some debt, build a port. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe it does work. And if it doesn't work, they don't got the port anymore. All right, let's see. Crush the dollar. Who's into Xbox and beer? De La Ville, Caesar Doggy. That must have been when I showed Buddy. And Silver Wolverine is absolutely right. I was plugging the store. Buddy looks overwhelmed. Yeah, imagine getting 2 Smaulgld glasses, the game-changing glasses. He had his nose in them and he had to stay. All right. Pay with Litecoin. Avoid the bank, says Johnny Moore. Johnny Moore is the Litecoin evangelist. He's out there on the streets of New Jersey talking about Litecoin and paying with Litecoin. And his point of view on Litecoin is not Litecoin to the moon, but that it is a payment system in which it's cheaper. You can't have the chargebacks. The reason I'm taking a shine to it is with this Patreon nonsense. There's no Litecoin looking over your shoulder saying, no, you can't send them any more Litecoin. He can't have any more Litecoin. Patreon can take down your entire account and say you can't get your money anymore. And you can't do that with Litecoin. If you want to send me Litecoin, there it is. It's right on the screen. You send it to me. No one can stop you. No one can tell you. Litecoin company can't tell you can't do it. So I do like it for that reason, for sure. But he's not hungry at the moment. Play the music. Recessions are caused by credit crunches, says ASMR people, since nobody can buy things with cash anymore. Yeah. Welcome to Munchkin Land, says La Plata Pink. All right. Yeah. Let's see. Follow the Yellow Brick Road and see Bill Still's vid on silver slippers and that OZ ounces tail. Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing with the silver Democrats and so on. They say that's what the Yellow Brick Road is based on. There's no place like Goldman, says La Plata Pink. It's funny, that book was nothing but a slam on William Jennings Bryan. Oh, you guys know that story. Yep, De La Ville saw that video too. I didn't see the video, but I know the story. All right, let's see what else we got. De Beers. We don't get into diamonds here. Prashante Girl is here. Good to see you. All right, everyone's giving her clapping. Let's see. Flame Tongu. Didn't we have like plus 10% Dow when 2008 crash was happening? Seems similar. Yeah, well, there's been a lot of similarities. You've also had the yield curve invert and the potential for recession. Nothing is the same. I mean, everything is a bit different. You could compare what I was comparing Reagan to Trump's first term. Totally different environment at the time. There was a long-standing recession from the 70s, oil shocks, high interest rates, stagflation. So rising interest rates were the same thing, but rising from, up to 10, 12, 15, 18%, not to 2.5%, 3%. All right, let's see what else we got. Seth Shepard. I'm not sure if today was a dead cat bounce or a new trend because the Fed decides to adjust their dot plot calculations. As I mentioned earlier, I think the cat's been dead for years. I think it's a fake cat, and so they can go wherever they want to put it. Pablo Pena says Trump giving us financial advice to buy the dip. Absolutely. Litecoin is the best coin, says Shepard. Is not Litecoin the right coin, says Pablo. Yeah, big swear. Doesn't mean it can't change. Let's see. AUAG. JPM demand for silver is bigger than U.S. mint sales. I don't know what that means. There is no JPM demand. I haven't seen it. But if you want to listen to people that tell you that, have at it. Pablo Pena, hello. In China, they can make copper into gold. Yeah, we saw that. We talked about that. I looked at that article. It seemed very strange. It's not really gold. I'm not sure what the purpose of doing what they did out of it, because you can't sell it as investment because it's not gold. It's not the same density. Lynette Zhang, she said in a video yesterday, silver is a monetary metal. Okay. And Smaulgld mugs are monetary items too. Do markets not have the ability to change demand? Yes, that's a good point, Dan the Man. That is absolutely true. And then he says this is retarded. But I think that's been held for review because we talked about the word. We're not supposed to use the word retarded, and I believe it's in reference to people. I'm not sure that word is off limits, just saying something, using the term meaning that it doesn't make sense or anyway. Yeah, ASMR people. We could not live our lives without plastic. But Dan's point is correct. And I cut on that. The markets have the ability to change the demand, and they could change it into maybe not money as a monetary metal, because it's not. Monetary metal means money means that it is used as a medium of exchange. Silver is not used as a medium of exchange. Period. It's not. No one uses silver as a medium of exchange. But they could and they used to. They don't. But Dan's point is that if we got a surge in investment silver demand, which is quite possible, then yes, that could change the demand. It still wouldn't make it a monetary metal. It'd make it an investment metal. But of course, people love to say gold is money, period. Silver is money, period. Silver is so useful, period. Yes, ask Venezuela if silver is money. Yes, now here's the thing. Absolutely. Currently, in the world, Dan, silver is not used as a medium of exchange. It may be used if you need Venezuela to give silver value, then you are, in a sense, hoping for bad conditions just so that the silver that you have could be used as a medium of exchange. I don't think you want that. And I think the people in Venezuela would gladly reverse the situation so they weren't in a position where they were trading silver coins to scrounge something around to eat. Of course, silver, what I say about silver and gold is they are dormant money. They used to be money. They clearly have all the properties of a functioning money, but they're not functioning as money, and therefore they're not money. They're dormant money, and therefore, if they're dormant money, they're not monetary metals. They used to be. Now, gold still you can argue because there is some trade that happens internationally that we know about and don't know about. In gold, we don't know about or hear about any of that happening in silver. We don't hear any central bank reporting silver reserves. No country trades in silver as a national currency. So silver is not a monetary metal because the demand for metal is not to make coins. Coins are money, and it's not to make rounds. Silver rounds or bars. The big demand for silver is to put in electronics, to put in solar panels, other industrial uses, silverware, and jewelry. That's not money. It's not monetary. Prashanti girl, do you all think gold and silver go down one more time before the real market begins? I'll let people answer that question. I think gold and silver reached their bottoms. I might agree with that, Pablo. AUAG, China will buy Chinese gold, but the copper thing is way too expensive. I don't know. What about JP silver demand? I don't know where that story ever came from. There is no JP Morgan silver demand. That is something that people repeat ad nauseum and state it as a fact. I haven't seen Haven't seen anything other than you can't prove it's not true. Dan, man, I know Bitcoin allowed Venezuelans to get medicine and food. Yes. Now in Venezuela, and Turkey too, the use of Bitcoin, Litecoin, gold, silver as medium of exchanges definitely are come to the fore in crisis markets. That's for sure. That is the reason that you have gold and silver and Bitcoin and Litecoin is to transact in a situation where your normal avenues of contracting are gone. So I'm not saying that, as I say, it's in the United States, clearly silver and gold are dormant money. They're not, you don't walk around with silver in your pocket and go to the store and buy stuff with your gold or silver. And generally, you don't do that with Bitcoin or Litecoin either. It doesn't mean they're not valuable. It doesn't mean they don't have properties. But I think it's a misnomer to say silver is money, silver is a monetary metal. No, silver used to be a monetary metal. It has the potential to be a monetary metal in selected circumstances again today, but in general, it isn't. All right, let's see. Silver to farmland ratio, 1-to-1. Yeah, but again, when you listen to people who their whole world is wrapped up in silver, of course you're going to hear cherry pick fact, and you're going to get information that everything is about silver. I mean, that's the whole, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Silver, a lot of the stuff you say about silver, you could say about copper, you could say about tin, you could say about lots of things. At some point, there's a lot of people like silver that like it more than gold for its monetary purpose. That doesn't make any sense. There's nothing to indicate that silver is more valuable as a monetary metal than gold is. Yep. Yes, Dan is correct. People are sustaining their lifestyles with silver, but silver is not money. It's just an industrial metal. No. See, you're almost mocking yourself when you think you're being sarcastic. Silver is not money. Venezuela is not an economy. It is a barter circumstance. If you think the use case for silver is in a place where nothing is made and a total breakdown of a socialist country, and that's the shining reason to own silver, that's problematic. That silver is valuable because Venezuela. BB guns are valuable to shoot rats because of Venezuela. I don't understand how that justifies silver. In a functioning economy, silver is $14 an ounce, largely based on its industrial demand. There is no monetary demand in the United States for silver, and if that's where you live, that's what matters. If you want to go be rich, bring silver to Venezuela and buy whatever you want. You really have to think that one through. If you really think silver is money, and it's money because of Venezuela, then go to Venezuela and be rich and buy stuff with your silver. I don't think you want to do that. So, LOL. Persanti girl. Wouldn't put it past the BOE to do that. Check the price of ounce of silver in Venezuela at the moment. Do me a favor, go there and be rich. I don't care what it is in Venezuela. I don't live in Venezuela. I don't intend to live in Venezuela. Now, one could argue, well, the United States can become like Venezuela. Absolutely. And then at that point, the dormant money that you have, silver, will become money to a certain extent. I don't disagree with that. But I don't want that to happen. I don't expect that to happen. And therefore, the market doesn't expect it either, and that's why silver's $14 an ounce. Oh my. Too much silver. Let's see. Yeah, I think this silver story is a hope story. Oh, and then the people will demand silver. No, they won't. They don't even know what it is. If anything, they know it is jewelry. The idea that somehow gold and silver are going to come to the rescue in a reset. Who's going to reset? The people will demand it. What people? How many people do you know that even own a piece of silver or gold? They're going to demand it? How are they going to demand it? The people that are in charge don't have monster boxes in their basement. They don't even think that way. So they're not going to do anything about it. That's not going to be their go-to. And the people that are starving, there's no movement to make a silver standard in Venezuela. What is the he doing? He's making them use the cryptocurrency they have. All right, let's see. Dan Mann, it's funny how he says silver is not money. Oh, this is the argument. If somebody important says it, yes, if Mark Thornton, Ron Paul, and Peter Schiff talk about it, well, then it must be true. You see, I never go for that. You have to go by what's being said, not who's saying it. So, first of all, if you want to take each of those, Ron Paul's been saying end the dollar hegemony for 40 years. I've total respect for Ron Paul, but Ron Paul, you wind him up, and he talks about dollar collapse. It's coming, recession, collapse. He's been saying it for 40 years since he wrote the Gold Commission. Does that make him not a respected economist? No. Does that make him not been a good congressman? No. Does it make him right about his predictions? Absolutely not. He's been wrong. Same with Peter Schiff. Oh, he's not wrong. He's just early. Yeah, but for 10 years, he's been saying the same thing. I don't care who they are. You have to go by what they say, not because they are famous names. Mark Thornton and Ron Paul and Peter Schiff say this, so therefore I'm listening to them. That is all I need to know, which basically means you shut your brain off and you say, I'm listening to experts because they have a name and they must know what they're talking about. But look at what they've been saying. They have been wrong. You can't show me that they've been right. Look at the predictions, the high prices of gold that are supposed to happen, the end of dollar hegemony. That was like a 1985 speech or something, or a 95 speech that Ron Paul said that. Now, does that mean that their arguments were not well thought out? No. They make analysis. But I'm not going to say, well, because they say it must be true, when the facts are staring me in the face that what they've said hasn't turned out to be true. And that's one reason I don't make predictions, but one of the reasons I can see why other people are going to make predictions that are going to fall flat is because they insist on dogma. They insist on gold is money, period. They start with the idea that gold and silver have to go higher. And then they say, well, and then they go around, they listen to Peter Schiff, they listen to Ron Paul, they listen to all these channels, and they all say the same thing, and they think, well, it must be true because all these people are saying it, and they're all smarter than I am, so therefore silver set to skyrocket. And it doesn't go higher. Well, but they're experts. This guy, Smaulgld, he doesn't know what he's talking about. What does he know? Ha, 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 LOL. All right. Let's see. Dan is right. It is wealth preservation. Alan Greenspan, Gold and Economic Freedom. I've read all this stuff. It's not like anyone's telling me anything new. I know all the arguments. But at some point, you're like hitting yourself in the face with a book. And it's telling you something, and the reality is telling you otherwise. And you have to start thinking for yourself and wondering, why do we not have these skyrocketing gold and silver prices? Just saying, but Alan Greenspan says, or Peter Schiff says, I don't care what they say. If they're wrong, it doesn't matter. Oh, let's see. It's barter economy in Venezuela. So fiat money is money because Fed prints money out of thin air. Mugs are money, period, says Taylor. That's right. Fiat money is money over gold with his logic. Where explain the logical steps how you get to that. Did I say fiat money is money over gold with that logic? No, you see, today, in the functioning economy, you may say dollars are worthless. But if you want to buy anything, you want to pay rent, you want to go somewhere, you are going to use fiat money instead of gold. That means fiat money has a utility that gold doesn't have. Does that mean that 50 years from now, the fiat money you have in your pocket will be worth more than gold? No, because fiat money is meant to be used to spend. Gold can be stored. Gold could be used at a future date, maybe not for money, but gold could be used in jewelry or in industry. So gold is far more useful as an asset than fiat currencies are. However, fiat currencies and digital currencies and cryptocurrencies are far more useful as medium of exchange than gold is. If you want to send me money to get a Smaulgld mug, it'd be a lot harder for you to send me $23.99 worth of gold, physical gold, than it would be to click at what you see on the screen and send me $23.99 worth of Bitcoin or Litecoin, or even to write me a check. So as a medium of exchange, money, gold, and silver were the superior ways of transferring value because we didn't have digital and paper wasn't trusted. But today paper is trusted. You send me as much of it as you want. I will take it and I can spend it. But back then, the best thing about gold and silver was they were divisible and they were portable. But today, digital is far more portable than gold and silver. And again, you just hear these people repeat it ad nauseum, and you don't think, would I rather exchange gold or silver than digits? And for two reasons, you'd rather exchange digits or currency. One, because it's a heck of a lot easier. And two, because you know that as an asset, the gold and the silver are worth more inherently and intrinsically than what you're exchanging. I hope that makes sense to you, because you probably never heard it explained it that way. You just keep hearing, gold is money, period. Fiat money is trash. It is created out of thin air. Yeah, I get all that, but it's still what people use. And if you don't like your fiat currency, send me as much. If there's a check, send it to Smaulgld LLC, P.O. Box 714, Dover, New Hampshire, 03820. So there is logic to what I'm saying. Okay, let's see what else do we got here. I like Dan. I read Alan Greenspan, Gold in Economics, and how gold prevents the insidious printing of fiat. I've read Murray Rothbard too. In fact, Murray Rothbard, if you read Murray Rothbard, he talks about what has the government done to our money. He talks about a gold standard, but not a mandated gold standard, but one in which the people decide that gold is the best medium of exchange. Well, he was writing that back when gold was the best medium of exchange, and so was silver. Today, there are far superior medium of exchange, and they are digital, because you can transfer the value of those digital assets easier than you can lugging around gold and silver. Now, you could put gold and silver, and I'm sure Rothbard would have been into this, into digital form like gold money. That's a very intriguing concept where you get a gold credit card. Schiff has this too. You get a gold credit card. You have your ounces of gold backing your digits, and you can exchange your gold that way. But you're not exchanging the gold itself. You're exchanging the representation of that, and that's nothing more different than when they used to have the goldsmith certificates, except it's down to trust. Does gold money actually have those ounces available in your account for you to trade? So it's not like I'm not steeped in all this Austrian economic stuff. I understand that. But then that doesn't translate to fiat is garbage and gold and silver are set to skyrocket because silver is so useful in our lives. And the gold-silver ratio is unsustainable. And all that nonsense, the reason I call it nonsense is for 10 years it's been incorrect. For 15, 20 years it's been incorrect. So you have to start looking at it not just from the perspective of starting with gold and silver have to skyrocket. All right. I think I'm about it here. Let's see. La Plata, pink, gold and silver aren't money, but they could be. That's my point. They're dormant money. All right, let's see. I can buy gold with a credit card. All right. I think it's about it, you guys. Thank you very much for joining. And Dan, I really appreciate your comments. I sound a little testy, but I know that you're well educated on this. You understand money. I've been through probably the same path you've been through, listening to these guys, reading these guys. But you have to update your knowledge, not just based on what somebody else says, but what you're actually seeing happening. And sometimes people believe their own story so much, they refuse to see the reality of what's happening, and they don't change their narrative, either because they make money off the narrative, they sell subscriptions off the narrative, they sell gold off the narratives. I only sell mugs. Mugs, man. You can't, they are real. All right. Good night, everyone, and thank you very much. And we'll see the game changers tomorrow. And Dan, come back. Tom is right. Gold is wealth insurance. Thank you, everyone. Let's shut down here. Get ready for tomorrow.